Hi everyone. So my name is Beth. I'll apologise that you've been looking at the side of my head. I've got my presentation on one screen where my webcam is, and I've got everything else on my other screen. So I do apologise. It will be the side of my head. My name is Beth, and I am the Finance Transactions Manager at Lancashire Teaching Hospitals NHS Foundation Trust up in the Northwest. So basically what happened was we obviously hit COVID, and I think as everyone did, we thought it was going to be a temporary thing. We thought, oh, couple of weeks, couple of months, it'll be, back to normal, we're back in the office, and that just didn't happen. So we sort of started meeting as a team, and our budget holders, we had a lot of turnover in staff, and a lot of staff were stepping up due to COVID and moving into other roles, which meant that our budget holders were having quite a bit of a turnover, really. And we were finding that we were being asked for training. We were like, oh, that's a bit of a sticky point, because the training we used to deliver was a full day face-to-face session, and it was something that could only be delivered face-to-face. It wasn't something we could even transfer to be virtual. So basically we were like, what are we going to do? We need to change this into something that we can basically deliver virtually, and that our budget holders, can do from wherever they are, be it at home, be it in the office, or wherever they might be. So the first thing that we did was sort of set up a brainstorming session, and we pulled together members of staff from all across finance in all different roles, lots of different bands, working for different sections, so from different divisions, from financial services. And we were like, how do we rework our budget holder training to turn it virtual? So we sort of sat down and said, what do we think the key things are? Well, we need to be able to deliver it over Microsoft Teams, as that's what our trust is using. And what else do we need? So what did we have in place before the pandemic, and what feedback have we had previously? So we tend to have found that when we used to do our old training, the feedback was very mixed. And I think it very much depended, as I'm sure some of you will know, on how engaged the budget holder was in finance. The training was quite intense, and it needed dedication to be able to understand and you'd be able to follow what was going on. And we kind of found that new budget holders didn't really have very good feedback, but advanced budget holders who kind of just wanted a refresher gave great feedback. So it was kind of a mixture, really. So we thought, well, that's something that we need to think about. So we pulled our colleagues together and we set up basically a working group. So what did we have previously? What are we including? So actually what we had in our training originally, did it cover everything that we wanted to teach a budget holder, things that we thought it was vital that they knew? What previous feedback have we had? How long was the session going to be? So if we're going to ask somebody to sit at a screen, it can't be all day. It's just not productive, and people get tired of looking at the screen, and we wanted to make sure people stayed engaged. And how do we make sure that people stay engaged, and how do we make it interactive? The last thing we wanted was for people to be like, oh, all we did was go on Teams and watch a presentation, and that was it. We wanted to make sure we were asking questions and getting the budget holders involved. And we needed to be mindful that as we were moving to virtual, we wanted to stay away from long periods of talking, because we didn't want people to lose interest. And I'm sure, like I say, you all know that sometimes in meetings you get a presentation up and it becomes very boring, and we just thought that's not going to be beneficial and the time is going to be wasted. So we thought, right, how are we going to deliver it? So are we going to use Microsoft PowerPoint? Are we going to try and do something like an interactive quiz? Are we going to use YouTube videos, or are we going to use our blended learning platform? So within our trust, we have a blended learning platform, which basically all our mandatory training sits on. So our things like information governance and that kind of thing. And that is a system where they can just basically log in and it tells them what they need to complete. So we thought, do we want to put it on there? Do we want to create sort of bite-sized YouTube videos for people to watch? So do we just want to put, a section of links together with members of finance staff that they could sort of take as and when they needed to? But ultimately we decided that an interactive quiz would be the best way. We wanted to deliver all of the training together, so we didn't want it to be sort of drop in, drop out. And we felt like if we sat down with the budget holders and we told them everything they needed to know, that it would be quite a way to make sure that everything is covered and that things aren't missed. So basically we have decided to use Kahoot, which I don't know if any of you have come across before, but it's basically an interactive quiz program, and it can be linked and embedded within Microsoft Teams, which means that basically you can go into Microsoft Teams and not need to launch any other website. And there is an app available that you download, and you log into Kahoot via Teams and you deliver it direct from there. So we decided that this was the program that we wanted to use. So next we were looking at creating the content. So what things did we need to include? And we allocated sections of the content out to the working group. So we definitely wanted to cover financial performance and SIP. And we wanted to make sure that we covered the finance structure, business cases, capital audit, charities, things that might be quite rare, but actually, you might find yourself coming across as a budget holder. Our cost control measures, so we're a trust in deficit, and we have strict cost control measures in place at the minute. How those measures affect what you might want to do as a budget holder, your actual budget statement itself, SLR, how you manage BI. That's something that definitely within the trust, our budget holders struggle with. We use shared business services and we use Oracle BI. And actually, for budget holders, sort of navigating the way around the system is something they struggle with. Income, so how the trust gets their income and how that's managed. And your responsibilities as a budget holder, so things that actually you need to be aware of and you need to be doing. So we allocated a section out to all the members of the working group, and they individually went away and created sort of slides or content that we then met and pulled back together. So the quiz is very interactive, and it basically is built on PowerPoint and then imported into Kahoot. And I am going to do a demo of the system so that you can see. But basically what happens is members of finance deliver our session, and it is 2 hours, and we deliver it once a month. And we're going to move that to once every other month once we've sort of had our first round, because the content in this is quite different to what we delivered previously. A lot of things that we didn't necessarily cover, and actually when we came to think about it, they were things that come up, especially during COVID, during times when things aren't necessarily normal, and that budget holders didn't know how to deal with. So we then decided to use Kahoot. So this is sort of what Kahoot looks like, and I will show you this. But basically, it's very, very comprehensive in the sense of what you can get from it. So Kahoot it's interactive, and it's basically a game program, and it requires the budget holder to have a computer or an additional screen, so a smartphone or a tablet or anything like that, or you can just log in on a laptop. And it's interactive. So as you'll see when we do the demo, basically what happens is on the screen, Kahoot tells the person when they are required to answer a quiz question or input something into the system. Whereas otherwise, if it's part of the presentation, so just a slideshow, it tells them that they need to be looking at the screen and listening to the presenter. So we split it between two presenters, and we sort of allocate out sections. It's about 75 slides, but each quiz question is also classed as a slide. So there's lots of different slide formats, some of which you can see here. So we've got quiz, which is sort of up to between 2 and 4 answers. So that'll be something that you'll be able to experience when I do the demo. And you can choose your answers. You can choose how many you have. You've got a true or false, a type answer. So this, where you find, is more open to obviously typos and that kind of thing, but that is an option. There's things like a puzzle, so you can ask players to place answers in the correct order. For example, if you were asking them the process of raising a requisition, which steps would you do in which order? You can collect opinions, so you can do a poll or a word cloud, and that basically allows people to either choose up to 4 answers in a poll or to just put in free-form poll responses, which we do use. And you can also put in sort of open-ended questions, so asking them to type a longer response. So maybe if you wanted to use it for something like feedback, and then you can do things like brainstorming. So you can collect, discuss, and vote on ideas. So actually, we've actually implemented this program to use across finance. So it's very, very flexible in what you can use it for, and it is a paid service. So we do pay for it, but what we paid previously for the method that we delivered, we have actually made a saving in using this and just buying a yearly license. And actually, like I say, we're using it for many other things, not just our training. So at the end of the session, you can see at the top, it tells you sort of how many plays we've had and how many players, but you're also able to pull reports from it. So basically, it gives you a report at the end that basically says who got what right and wrong, how interactive they were, how long it took them to answer. And that's really good because I suppose if you're doing a training session, you expect people to maybe get things wrong as you're teaching them, but also, for example, in our training, we have two sections where there's two quite longer quizzes with multiple questions, and we provide them with the information beforehand. So SIP, for example, is a great one. We tell them what we do and don't as an organisation class as a cost improvement programme, and then we give them scenarios and say, do or don't you think this is a SIP? And then at the end, we tell them why. We would sort of hope by the end of the sixth example that they would be able to now determine whether it was or wasn't a SIP. So it's really great at the end to be able to see if a budget holder just really hasn't grasped it, because you can then, ask one of your divisional teams or whoever works with your budget holders to go back and maybe do some additional one-to-one training if that's required. So it's really actually great what you can pull from the system. And it's also very competitive. So as part of our previous training, one thing that did come out of it that was always positive feedback was how the previous training was a competition. And we definitely wanted to keep that. Everyone loves a bit of friendly competition, and it does keep that engagement up. So this allows you to basically keep a score. And when a player logs into Kahoot, which you'll do, you can enter a nickname. So basically what happens is you're asked to enter a nickname, you're asked to enter your proper name, your first name and surname, and then all the way through you answer as your nickname. So it keeps that element of sort of not being embarrassed if you get an answer wrong or you're not 100% sure, or if you're the last to answer, but it keeps that competition going and keeps the engagement. And then at the end, there's basically sort of like a podium, and it tells you who has got the most answers correct and who's the winner, which is just sort of a fun element, really, to be able to keep in it. And as I mentioned before, it can be embedded as an app into Microsoft Teams, so you don't need to have multiple windows open to deliver the training, which is really, really handy. So after our launch, we basically set up an email account that means that anybody who wants to attend the training can email the specific email to book on. We originally had them set up at the beginning from every other month. However, it was absolutely inundated with people. I don't think in my 4 years at the trust before this was launched, I delivered maybe 5 of our previous training sessions during that time, and the amount of people who signed up in the first 2 weeks of us launching this, I don't think we had that many people on the previous training session in 4 years. We have been fully booked for every single session we have done since we launched this. So the first session was in February or March, and it's been fully booked every single month since. We had to put on additional sessions. The convenience of it being virtual, actually, outside of COVID, even when numbers in the hospitals went down, it still meant that more people attended. We work cross-site, so our hospital is based at 2 main hospital sites and 2 additional off-site areas, and we also have community teams. So actually, for people to be able to attend the training just from home or from wherever their office space is, rather than having to travel to either of our sites to attend, has definitely been the thing that I think has made a massive difference. So I think even as, we have done this as a result of COVID, but it's definitely been the right thing to do. We included the session dates in our weekly chief exec briefings. So our chief exec emails out twice a week and a specific message on a Monday. And we also included it in our finance close down emails. So when we advise that Oracle is shutting down, we were able to include it in there. So we've had to add 2 additional sessions, as I mentioned, because we were fully booked. And we had 3 fully booked sessions at the time that I did this presentation. And we've since had 1 or 2 more. So the uptake on the training has been amazing. And also we've opened it up to colleagues who are looking to progress within the trust. So some people who we've had on the session have actually been aspiring budget holders, or people who feel like it's something that they'd like to know a bit more about, ready for their personal development. And we've had great feedback on it being really open, and actually the content that we have around the trust finance position and just how finance works has actually just been beneficial for them, not even being a budget holder. There is a really large section on budget holder responsibilities, how to check budget statements. However, the rest of the session is very generic, and it's very open, and we actually really wanted to use the training to highlight the trust financial position. As we say, we are a trust in deficit, and I think that education alongside, how to just manage a budget has been really helpful as well. We really don't think we're going to move back to generic training. We just, like I say, never got this kind of engagement when we did it face to face. And our financial advice colleagues who work with budget holders are always available for one-to-ones. And we're actually now have just had our review meeting last week, and we're looking at now making a mandatory refresher. So this is something that Kahoot has the ability to do. So basically what you can do is set up a self-running quiz, which is basically like what I'm going to show you, but it doesn't need narration and it doesn't need somebody to present it. What happens is the trainee receives a link via email, and they just click that link and it basically takes them to the web page, and they are then allowed to enter in and complete the training. And again, that is reported. So if you want to make it a yearly mandatory training, which is what we're looking at doing, and having a refresher course, if you find that you've got a report back and a budget holder has got sort of every single question wrong, then we know that actually they might need to come back and revisit the initial thorough training and also have a one-to-one with financial advice. The feedback we've had to date, and we really feel like the training has achieved everything that we desired, everything that we wanted from it. So people have thought that it's got a good overview of what they needed as a budget holder. They love the format, and the course was hard going. It would have been hard going, but the engagement has made it enjoyable, which we all know that, some elements of finance, it's just impossible to make it enjoyable. The SFIs are the SFIs and the scheme of delegation, and some parts of finance are dry, we know that. But to know that our budget holders are coming back and saying, actually, it wasn't, we kind of must be doing something right. People have really had good things to say about the interactive element. I think it's just that not sitting and listening to somebody for a really long period of time and actually being able to input and do the quiz. Yeah, and also don't really have budget holders who don't really have much involvement with managing budgets, it being a really great insight to how everything works. So I'll pause.
Sorry.
I was just about to say, sorry, I'll pause before we do the demo if there's any questions.
There is one in the chat. It says, has there been any improvement with financial awareness and control as a result of the training?
Yeah, so obviously it's only been going for a few months and we've had year end and that kind of thing. However, I have since moved to the other side of finance. So when I was working on this project, I was in financial advice. I spent some time working for the surgery division, and then I went to work for reporting, and then I moved into income and costing. And it was during my time in reporting and income and costing that I was working on this project with the team. And now that I've moved over into financial services, which is our AP and AR invoice payment side, I have noticed in the trust that people are more aware of the budget side of things and are more. So when I'm going to them and saying, for example, we've got a purchase order and it needs receipting, and they're saying, well, this is an old purchase order, how does this affect my financial position? Because my financial advice colleagues in the training, someone actually said to me, have said that if I don't receipt in that financial year, it means that it rolls over into this financial year. And I was like, that's exactly correct. So even though it's not been going for very long, in my role in financial services, I have seen elements of where we must be learning something, which is great. And that's ideally what we want. Obviously, we can't see at the minute, whether it's necessarily helped our deficit. We're only 3 months into the year, but we are hoping that it's just a way that we can make people think before they do things, and make people think before they spend. And we're actually now looking at a different side of training. So this is our sort of budget holder management training, but we're also now looking at requisitioner training and sort of training around invoice payments and that side of finance. And now that I've sort of moved over to the other side, I'm hoping to try and replicate this for everything that it's kind of missing. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Beth. I think we've got another
Got
one
some more,
in the chat. Can you see the chat
Yeah,
box?
sorry, I've got the chat up now. So
No worries.
Haley, do you think the move from face-to-face to virtual was the main driver for increased attendance? Yeah, definitely. Like I say, we basically did the sessions and we used to alternate them. So we did one session a month, one at Chorley and one at Preston, and we used to alternate. And on the day we'd get so many cancellations. Sorry, something's come up, can't travel, or this has happened. And like I say, it was a full day. So I think the time has made a massive difference as well. So we know that clinicians struggle to get an hour out, never mind a full day. And that has made a massive difference. And yeah, definitely the virtual, especially with us having people who work at other sites, not just hospital sites. And at the minute, we're getting a lot of budget holders coming on from home. So obviously, when our clinicians are doing admin, we are still 100% working from home where possible in our trust. So for example, I'm in finance, I'm working from home full time still, and our matrons are doing their admin days at home. So we've had budget holders coming on from home, and it's just that complete flexibility. And it's again the time reduction, I would say. Sorry, I'm just reading them as they come in. Karen, did you create all the content locally or use some other training materials? So most of it has been created locally, and we have put screenshots together, quiz questions, that kind of thing. However, we do have the how money flows in the NHS video, which is the future focused finance video. We feel like that it's quite early in the presentation, and it's around when we're discussing our financial position. And we feel like it's really important to give the budget holders that wider overview of where they're getting, where the money comes from. You know, the money that we're telling them is so precious and needs to be spent wisely, can't be overspent. Where does it actually come from, and why is it that we have a set budget and that kind of thing? So yeah, otherwise than that, it is all created locally. We do also have the financial pressures in the NHS video as well. And actually you can put in a YouTube link, so you don't need to go outside of Kahoot to do it. So basically there is an option on the different types of way you can upload. So you can upload PowerPoint presentations, Excel documents you can put into actually in Kahoot and amend them in Kahoot. And YouTube is one of them. So basically the video is embedded in the training, which is great, because it's always, isn't it, when you're going out to YouTube and you have to open the window and click play, but you don't have to do any of that. It's just embedded and it automatically plays. Samir, you mentioned you had people joining who were aspiring budget holders as well as existing, but you have an email that people email to get onto a session. Do you validate whether the requests to join a session are from budget holders, aspiring budget holders, or if it is just first come, first serve? So the training sessions are available monthly. So we've never been in a position where we haven't been able to accommodate. And we don't really have a set number. We like to keep it around 30 because we just feel like that means that if there's questions, they can be well managed, and we can kind of give more attention. But we've not been in a position where we've not been able to accommodate someone yet. However, we do have our budget holder hierarchy, and that is checked back. So basically what we do at the end of the session is our secretariat goes back and sends out the feedback form, which then obviously gives them their certificate of attendance, and we just mark off when budget holders have attended as per our budget holder hierarchy. Hi Beth, you mentioned a yearly license for Kahoot. Are you permitted to disclose the cost? I can't see why I can't, but if I'm honest, I don't remember off the top of my head what it is. I think it was around £400, I want to say, but that could be completely wrong. What I'll do is I'll put my email address in the chat afterwards, and feel free to just drop me an email because I will probably forget, but I'm happy to share the link with you. You'll see the programme when we move on to the demo, but yeah, you can just sort of go on, and it's just called Kahoot, and that's what we use. Like I say, we're not I feel like I should probably say we're not advertising it or anything like that. It's just sort of how we've transferred into it. The reason that we use the program is because I actually used it at college, and I think there are other programs that kind of do the same thing. but I knew how to use Kahoot and was comfortable uploading things into Kahoot and that kind of thing. So the team sort of thought that it was appropriate for us to use that just because it was familiar to somebody within the department. I'm sure there are other other softwares that you can use, other programs, and we just like the fact that this could be embedded into Teams and that kind of thing, because we just know that with everyone working from home, it's also a sense to be aware that if you're opening multiple windows, you can get delays and you always have technical difficulties. You know, it's a miracle if everything goes perfectly. But if it's all within Microsoft Teams, it reduces the number you have to have up. I'm obviously now not delivering it from Teams, with the fact that none of you are on my sort of server, so it might not, I've not tried if it would work or not, so I'm going to get it up on the internet, but you don't actually have to do that when you deliver it. Can you confirm which NHS videos you use and recommend for the training sessions? Yeah, that's fine. It's the how money flows in the NHS and the financial pressures in the NHS videos. They're on the FFF website. But when I send out the slides, I'll ask Megan to put links in if that's all right, Megan. They're just readily available on YouTube. I hope that's okay, Harry. Are there any others before I sort of move on to the demo? I am going to put you all at a test now because I've left our jargon buster in there so you can sort of see the way just the quiz works really. And if you don't have another screen or whatever, you don't have to participate. It's fine. But what I'll do is I'll just unshare my screen and reshare the other screen. Just so we can sort of have a look. So okie dokie. So if you have a device, so if you've got your laptop available or a mobile phone or an iPad, if you basically just go to www.kahoot.it and it will ask you for a game pin and it's just this 7-digit number here. Now I've just realised I've not shared with volume, so I'm going to share and unshare. So you should hopefully all be able to see that now. So hopefully as people start logging in, basically what will happen is the names will start coming up on the screen. So this is how you can check that all your attendees are on. And those of you that are logged on or are logging on will see you get two options. So you get an option for a nickname and an option for a proper name. And that's just so that through the quizzes, if people choose to use a different name, that just means that there's no, if people aren't comfortable, sometimes people can get a bit worried about, oh, people will see I've got the answer wrong or that kind of thing. So the nickname just is available there to hide that element. So I'll just give it one more minute so that people can log on if they want to. Like I say, no pressure at all to participate. It does tell you how many participants you've got here on the left-hand side. You've got your volume at the top. You can make it full screen, so I'll do that. You can also, there is an app as well, sorry, I did forget to mention, there is an app you can download. So you don't really need to, obviously, if you're just delivering a one-off training. But if you were using it within your department for anything like continuous and people wanted to use an app, then they can. Another thing is to mention that it's not dependent on having a smartphone or an iPad. Some people might not feel comfortable with using that if it's their personal device, but you can just use the computer that they're working on, their own laptop or computer. Oh, still coming in. Okay, we'll give it a start. You can join all the way through. So if someone joins later, the Kahoot pin is in the bottom, so it will come up in a minute. What you should see now on your screen is that please look up, nothing is required. So I think it's something around that which will show on your screen that basically says that you don't need to be working on the screen at the minute and that you can just listen to the presenter. So the game pin is always in the bottom right-hand corner. So that means that if somebody joins late, they can just sort of slot in wherever it is you're up to. So our opening sort of session looks like this. And then we have our objectives. So we're looking to teach them, how to understand their role as a budget holder, what tools they've got available, how money flows through the system, how they need to support trust pressures and understand our trust pressures. So we then have a word cloud. So this is one of the options that is basically interactive, and it should now come up on your screen. What do you want to gain from the session? And this is just really good for us as finance, that we make sure that people are here, and expecting the right thing from the session. What is it they want to learn? And actually something might come up as part of this that we don't cover in the session. And actually, if we don't cover that in an alternate finance training session, is that something we need to look at implementing? So we've just recently done our review, and there have been some things that have come out of this word cloud where we've not covered it, and we've actually determined that it's in another training session that is available on e-learning. So we've gone back to the person who requested it and said, this is available here. So you can see on the left-hand side, there is a timer. You can take that up to as many minutes as you want. We just feel like it gives that competitive element. We gave two minutes per question, I think. So we felt like that was a good amount of time. It's always, in our quiz, multiple choice. So our training is always multiple choice, and there's no open-ended questions or anything like that. And obviously we're not testing them. If they happen to get it wrong, it would be fine. It was just more so that we can gauge. So we've had quite a few answers, and they'll keep coming in. So for example, now if somebody sort of joined the session late, it would bring them to the next slide. So if they put the Kahoot game pin in, it would ask them for all the same information. And when I move on to the next slide, that's where they would begin. And for now, it would just say, sort of look up, you don't need to participate now, which is good as well, because that means that if it's something where you want them to be looking at the screen and looking at your presentation, they're not sort of distracted by the phone or what's going on the screen, because it tells them that it's time for them to look. So this then pops up all the things that they want to know. So for example, this is really, really good. So whoever put how to raise a PO, thank you. I was hoping something like this would come up. So in our training session that we run on Kahoot at the minute, we don't cover this. That's in a separate training session. So financial services cover how to do things like raising POs, receipting orders, payment of invoices. The trust is currently looking at implementing no PO, no pay from the 1st of January. So what is an exception? That's dealt with separately. So that will be the perfect opportunity for us at the end to see who mentioned that in the word cloud, and go back to them and say, did you know that that is available via this training method? And all this information that's input is available at the end on a report. So we go through our finance department and our structure. So I've left that in just so you can sort of see. We talk to them about our director of finance and our two sides of finance. So we have financial advice, which is our management accounts, and financial services, which is our technical accounts and AP and AR. And what each side covers, really, because we do find that sometimes budget holders, don't really know who to go to, and these slides are shared afterwards in sort of a slightly different format, so that the quiz questions are obviously avoided, but that means that they can keep them for reference. So the main quiz that we get a lot of feedback in, which I think I was very surprised at, actually, I'll admit, when I came into finance, was the jargon busting. And people seem to love when we bust jargon. So this is basically a quiz. So we'll see. It's always very interesting doing this with finance, and when we did it for the whole team, there were people who got the answers wrong, which is quite funny. So you should have 4 options now on your screen. You should have a red triangle, a blue diamond, a yellow circle, and a green square. One thing to mention as well, sorry, is that the time at the side, it does count down. However, if all the people in the quiz answer before the time is up, the clock will stop. So this picture in the middle, when you put together these quiz questions, it basically asks you for a picture. So this is just part of our PowerPoint presentation, and we just did a snip and uploaded it as an image. So now you can see that 16 people got it correct, 7 people got it wrong. I do think that the wording is a little bit thingy on that. But yeah, so basically it shows you how many people answered which question and which answer is right. And then it will tell us now the points. So Kiri was the quickest person to answer it correctly, so that it gets them the most amount of points. And basically what happens is as the timer counts down, the number of points goes down from 1,000. So the points are 837, and Shelby wasn't far behind. So that's how you get the sort of competitive element. And it's just a bit fun to follow it through. And basically it gives you that scoreboard after every question, and then you have the podium at the end. So the next one is prepayment. What's also really good is at the end when the answers are revealed, if you look on your screen, it tells you how well you did. So I remember for me, that always used to make me want to do better. Okie dokie. So we can click next again, and the scoreboard's moving. So the people who answer quickest and the scores continue. So what's really good is we did say at the beginning, how can we do it so that the scores are all the way through the training? So we've got multiple sections in the training where we're using different versions of these quizzes, and we didn't want there to be sort of a winner at the end of every section. We just wanted one overall winner at the end. So the way you can do that is basically when you create your PowerPoint presentation or your content, you upload the PowerPoint slides direct from PowerPoint into Kahoot, and then you can build the quiz questions around the slides. So that's how we sort of insert the sections of the quiz, which means that it's just one quiz all the way through. Kahoot classes it as one quiz. So we've got capital. So I think we tend to have the same thing that happens. However, during the quiz, we tried to keep it so that there were a bit of process of elimination. And I think this blue one is what we class as assets, but we will see. So, oh, we've got a new leader. So CMW, whoever you are, well done. You are a new leader. So then we've got provision. One sort of thing that I probably should mention as a negative is that these answer options, they're limited on the amount of text you can have. And that's probably the only one downside of it. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's enough text for you to be able to put sufficient answers in. But sometimes we wanted to waffle on a little bit, and we sort of had to change up the way we did it. So we'll see. So up 4 places, Alexa is the highest climber. So Alexa, well done. So we've got reserve. There we go. So 5 players have got a 5 answer streak. So it's quite fun that these things just pop up at the bottom, and you tend to find that during the training sessions, the budget holders start sort of like talking to each other and trying to figure out who is who, especially if you use like quite cryptic nicknames. They try, especially if we've got members of the team that sort of attend together, and it does get quite competitive. Okay. So the scoreboard will update again. I think this is the last one. Got journal. And then this is an example of the how money flows in the NHS. So you can see that basically the video is just embedded and it just automatically starts to play. We would just
in England and describes how the money flows.
So basically, as long as you had shared your media, so basically we have a instructions sort of sheet for our presenters on how to present through Teams, making sure they click the little toggle that means you can hear the media. And basically you just move on to the next slide and the video is embedded in Kahoot and automatically plays. I won't make you sit through it. And then we basically have who is the winner, and Kahoot gives us the podium. So if you have the same amount of people who get the same amount of answers right, it does it based on time, so how quickly they answered, and you get, so well done, Hayley, you are the winner, and it also gives you the 2 runners up. So then what happens afterwards is 71% of people got this correct, and you can choose, so every question was answered correctly by most players, and it gives you sort of like an overview. Afterwards, you can pull out more reports that give you basically every single question and every single person that answered it, which answer they gave, whether they answered correctly, so that what you can take away from it is really actually quite in depth. But you can click, which is, oh, sorry, that's there, view full report, but you can click this get feedback. So basically, you should now on your screen have an option to give completely anonymous feedback, and that is completely anonymous. So we chose as a department to also still send out a feedback form afterwards, so we could get something that's a little bit more in depth and get actual comments, because this is just a star rating. You can choose to show it on the screen if you want. So how people are feeling, and like I say, it's just a thumbs up, thumbs down, and the game got 4.4 out of 5. So that's, that's a great result. And that updates as and when people continue to give feedback, and afterwards that's available to see. So you sort of don't need to be looking at it straight away or making sure you keep it open. You can just go into the report afterwards and have a look. So that's the game. I will stop sharing my screen and I will open back up if there's any other last questions. I know the session's sort of been a bit shorter, but I wasn't sure how many questions I was going to get, so I thought I'll put in more time. But if there's any other questions, then I'm happy to take any others. No? Well, what I'll do is I'll just put my email address in the chat now. Oh, I can talk at the same time. But also when I give the slides to Megan to distribute, I'll put my details in there. I'm happy for anybody to contact me separately. If anybody wants to see more in depth the content that we've got, obviously our session is 2 hours long, so I just wanted to sort of put some elements in the training for you to see how it works, but I'm happy to share more details around the content that we've used. Just contact me directly, that's absolutely fine. Oh, we've got a question. You mentioned you sent some reading material out prior to the training. So the reading material isn't sent out beforehand, it's sent out afterwards. So basically what we do is send them the slides and they've got sort of narrative around them in the comments. So it's kind of like our notes really, and we give them that, and then we have other training sessions which are available. So in our training presentation at the end, there's other options available, and that is where they can then go and find the other methods like the requisitioner training or the no PO no pay training or anything like that. But like I say, I'm happy to share the content in more detail if you want to if anyone wants to contact me separately, that's not a problem. Samir might have mentioned it earlier, but how many quizzes, training sessions could you create for your single fee? So as far as I'm aware, there isn't a limit. The only limit is this presentation can't be more than 100 slides. However, we haven't got the top subscription, I think that's the right phrase. There are multiple prices and multiple options. Each one has different amounts of access to what you can and can't include, but it's all on the website of the company. It's all on kahoot.it. So you can sort of choose your level. So yeah, I think the only limitation is that you can only have 100 slides. So each PowerPoint slide or quiz question is its own slide. So ours is about 75. And I mean, there's not much in the training we don't cover, if I'm honest. We cover everything. We cover audit, capital, as I went through them at the beginning. So it's very, very comprehensive. And if we can do that in sort of 75, and I think maybe 20 of that is actual individual quiz questions. So, you know, really the slides are around 55 out of the actual limit. So we have still got room to include more if we want to, or obviously separate out the training if we feel like it's something we want to cover in more depth. But like I said, I don't know the actual number if there is a limit, but I don't think there is one. But yeah, I hope sort of everyone's enjoyed the session. Oh, I've got one here. I'm just going through the comments. Thank you for all the comments. Louisa, is Kahoot easy to use and navigate? I think it's really easy to use. The actual thing itself is quite self-explanatory. So when you go into create a Kahoot and create a quiz, it basically says, what do you want to do? And it comes up with pop-ups to say, like, do you want to include true or false? Do you want to include, you want to import PowerPoint slides? Do you want to put an Excel in? So it's quite self-explanatory as to when you're putting it together, what you need to do. And there are also forums, and the website has forums and that kind of thing. Like I say, I was familiar with it. So for our organisation, I sort of manage the Kahoot side of things. Like I say, we've just looked at some developments we want to make. So the team who are in the working group have gone out, they're going to do their bits and they'll send them to me and I'll do the inputting in Kahoot. If anybody does end up choosing, you know, to use the program, I'm happy to sort of show people how I work it, but there are, like I say, that the company itself has forums and training available, and there are guides, and the actual system itself when you go in to do it is really self-explanatory. Sorry, I'm just quick skim reading. Someone's mentioned about it being more interested and interactive, and I definitely think that's something the feedback has really reflected. You know, and especially when it's finance, it's just the truth that when budget holders hear finance, they just don't want to do it. It's like, you know, it's like the things like information governance, the SFIs, people just think, oh, that's the most boring thing in the world, they don't want to do it. Obviously we have to do it, and we're just trying to make it as interactive as possible. And I do feel like our budget holders have reflected that, you know, we are doing that. And like I say, it's no specific advertisement for this company or anything. That's just who we've chosen to use, and there probably are other companies out there that do the same thing. We didn't really research it just because I was familiar with it and it was a suggestion I put forward. It was within our budget, and it did what we needed it to do. But yeah, so thank you so much for coming on the session. I do really appreciate it. And like I say, 100% available for any questions that might come to you later on, or when you sort of start to look at if you choose to do a virtual training, even if you don't use this program, but you just want to discuss content and that kind of thing. I'm 100% happy to help anybody. So yeah, if there's no other questions, I'll let everyone have 38 minutes of their day back.
Thank you, Beth. That was really helpful, and there's some really good comments in the chat box. So, like
Yeah.
I said, I'll circulate all of the slides and information afterwards, and I hope that everyone found that useful. And have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.